When we speak with policymakers, they tell us that the U.S. deficit is the largest threat to U.S. dominance and the U.S. economy as a whole. I believe that practically everyone in markets thinks that we are headed in an unsustainable direction. The figures are astounding, and a really bold attempt is currently underway to try and come up with a plan to either limit the increase of government spending or possibly reduce it, which is doji. Additionally, Elon Musk and VC Rizani are in charge of it. This reminds me of several sections of David McCullough's Truman biography that discuss Truman's work during World War II. Additionally, he established a committee known as the Truman Committee, though I'm not sure if that is as well known. It was established because the United States government was unable to finance military expenditures to support the Allies in the early stages of World War II. Additionally, the U.S. was taking on a lot of debt. However, the U.S. also discovered that the companies supplying the U.S. were either overcharging or giving subpar parts. The Truman Committee had no executive authority when it was established. Truman appointed 7 senators, and their only effective weapon was public radio, which allowed them to humiliate businesses by exploiting the public airways. The Truman Committee helped the United States save up to $15 billion. The Truman Committee discovered many instances, ranging from overcharging for steel to faulty engine parts causing plane crashes. Many people believe that he made it possible for the U.S. to finance World War II without going bankrupt. He was the first Doge, and he achieved all of this using only a public pulpit rather than actual executive authority. Will Doge succeed in doing the same? I'm not sure. I'm worried that this process will include exposing instances of government waste to the public, which may be quite embarrassing for businesses. However, because it may disgrace businesses and enrage people, it could also become extremely controversial. I don't want to sound alarmist, but take a look at what transpired when someone became furious with health insurance companies. Regrettably, it resulted in a CEO being assassinated. Should Doge uncover a great deal of government waste, may something similar occur? I'm not sure. Nvidia, one of the biggest firms in this market as a whole, is examining some of the more optimistic behavior we're witnessing in today's options trading. Tom, tell us what drew your attention. Then, the fact that NVIDIA is one of the only Mag 7s that is higher today is one of the factors that drew my attention. It should come as no surprise that today's call volume is more than twice as high as the put volume. There are still over 1.5 million calls traded in Nvidia, even on a day with lower trading activity. This may be in response to ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, claiming that they are attempting to buy up to $7 billion worth of Nvidia chips from sources other than China. Recall that they are unable to get the high bandwidth ones they require for their data centers within China. As a result, the stock is most likely receiving some support. Additionally, Jensen Huang will be the keynote speaker at the CES conference on January 6. That will most likely be significant. He will most likely provide some indicator of the demand for their products. The black has already essentially run out of those chips. Furthermore, many of the major tech firms have declared, hey, we're going to continue to spend on AI infrastructure build-out, which benefits Nvidia as they currently possess roughly 85% of the data center and GPU chips available. Furthermore, since that is the upcoming version of their AI chip, Rubin is, perhaps going to provide some signal on Rubin and the expectations. Nvidia is doing well so far this year. It has increased by more than 180%, more than 1%, and almost 2% today. Additionally, there was some bullish call activity observed here. There was a lot of action on the 140 strike calls early in the session because the January monthly cycle finishes on the 17th, which is around 18 days away. More than 40,000 were taken in early. On these calls, they paid a debt of almost $430 on average. Therefore, the break-even price of $144.30 for the next 2.5 weeks is around 3% higher than the present price of Nvidia's shares. Therefore, you don't need to make a huge upward move. The keynote speech on January 6 might serve as that impetus. Today, more than 65,000 calls have been traded on that strike. There has been a lot of open interest in that strike at the 140 line. Today, it exceeded 280,000, so that number will only rise. However, you noticed a lot of call purchasing in the near-term options on the 140 strike and the February 140 strikes, as well as in the January monthly options that expire in 18 days. So this great round figure of 140 has a huge volume. With today's advances, the stock is no longer in correction territory, although it is still down roughly 9% from its peak. Alright, so I'm holding on to a really good move for today. As you mentioned, Nvidia is really firming up on the day, up 1.5%, while Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, Netflix, and Tesla are all lower, leading the Mag 7 and really all of our tech throughout our coverage. Unfortunately, Now let's look at a name that is lower today. Alaska Air, which is down roughly 1.25%. Along with the other airlines, this one has had a great year. In fact, I believe it was an underappreciated beneficiary of the post-election surge, although it has retreated roughly 4% from its peak. What bullish options activity are we observing as well? Yes, Jenny, we know that all of the airlines have been doing quite well because demand for travel has been soaring. Alaska Airlines has also increased by more than 65% this year. That parabolic move is visible. The charts will appear the same if you overlay it with nearly every other significant airline in existence. The shares are at their highest levels in more than 3.5 years. On their Investor Day on December 10th, they unveiled their Alaska Accelerate, which outlines their plans to open more routes into Asia, including Japan and South Korea. Additionally, as demand begins to increase, their merger with Hawaiian Airlines is greatly assisting them in growing their fleet and capacity in the Far East. They used those jets they had acquired from Hawaii to create Seattle as their new worldwide gateway with non-stop service. They claimed that it was a merger, but in reality, it was a takeover. Additionally, they increased their fiscal year EPS estimate during that event from the consensus of roughly $5.44 to roughly $5.75. As a result, Alaska and many other airlines are doing well. There was some hot option action here, I noticed. As of right now, just over 10,000 calls were exchanged on the 65 strike call on January 17. This strike has affected roughly 96,000 of the total option volume across all of their option series. And those January 65 calls were the odd option activity that caught my attention. They paid an average debt of $1.90 for more than 10,000 of those. For this trader, the break-even point, at which they begin to make money, is $66.90 over the following 18 days. That is just roughly 2.5% more than Alaska Air's current share price. The volume of calls is exploding in here, as I mentioned. In spite of the light trade leading up to Wednesday's New Year's vacation, call volume is almost 1.5 times the daily average volume. So yes, someone believes that Alaska will see some additional increases before that expiration on January 17. All right, and last but not least, everything related to cryptocurrency is a segment of the industry that has undoubtedly caught our interest at the conclusion of this year. Naturally, Bitcoin and its futures are down today, but they are really relaxing off lows. Riot Platforms is currently down roughly 3.6%, which is one of the larger declines we are examining today. Talk about explosive volume though, since this name always has a lot of volume. Really, it's just one of those market segments that consistently attracts our attention, even in the absence of news. Riot is utilized or has been used as a stand-in for Bitcoin trading, which is one of the reasons, and, in my opinion, one of the major issues if you look at this. Additionally, Riot Blockchain has lost more than 30% of its 2024 gains compared to Bitcoin's nearly 120% advances. If you would like any other changes, please let me know.